How old are your kids right now? You probably rattled off a couple of numbers in your head, or maybe you're scratching your head trying to remember the exact age. But then being 18 years old probably seems a long way off. I have found that the childhood years of raising young kids can be very slow. However, when you hit those teen years, oh my, it is so fast. It is a blur, and suddenly you have this brand new 13-year-old and they're turning 18 and you're saying, what? I have a legal adult. Suddenly, at that point then, you are looking at this young adult and you want to stay connected with them. You've been homeschooling them and you're saying, I don't want to lose that connection. Yes, things are going to be different, but I still want to stay connected. I still want to be bonded, and I still want a good relationship with my now young adult. I am currently actively in this phase with 2 of my 3 kids, and trust me, I have learned a lot. I'm going to share with you today some of the things I have learned so that you can learn from my mistakes.
Welcome to Little by Little Homeschool Podcast, where you'll learn tips and strategies that will empower you to home educate your children. I'm Leigh Nguyen, a homeschool mom of over 12 years, which includes 2 graduates. When I started homeschooling, I was pretty much on my own and was desperate for encouragement and help. My mission is to be a source of encouragement and help to you. Whether you are just beginning your homeschool journey or you're deep into the homeschool lifestyle, Little by Little Homeschool wants to help you stay the course, because all the time you are investing into your children is completely worth it. If you're ready to take your homeschool to new levels, keep listening.
You might be in the middle of many young children at home and you are raising and educating them, and I am so glad that you're listening to this episode. It might seem a little bit out of the realm that you are currently in, but I love that you are forward thinking and that you are wanting to be intentional and wanting to get some just nuggets of information, be able to tuck them in the back of your mind, because I did that same exact thing. As my kids were growing up, I continued to look at what's the next stage and what's the next phase so that I could read up on it. I could listen to podcasts. I could listen to speakers. I could do studies and just read lots of books and be prepared myself so that I wasn't taken off guard, and wanting to do things, be a bit more proactive instead of reactive. Did you know that I do offer a mentorship? If you right now are in the throes of maybe a specific situation, or maybe it has to do with your homeschool, it has to do with your motherhood, it has to do with you wanting to raise children in a biblical worldview, no matter what it is, I do offer a mentorship where you and I can chat one-on-one, and I would love to be able to do that. You can get the information and find out all about that at littlebylittlehomeschool.com/mentorship. Or just go to the main website and click on the mentorship tab, and I will drop the link in the show notes. So what I'm saying today resonates with you in some way, and you want to be able to talk more about it one-on-one, definitely go ahead to that site and let me know, and we'll get things going. And I would love to be able to come alongside you in that. So a little bit of a backstory of me, just so that you know where I am coming from. As you have probably gathered, and I have said, I have 3 children. Their ages are 21, 19, and 16. So girl, boy, boy. And we stepped into the homeschooling world when my daughter was going into 3rd grade, and my oldest son was going into 1st grade, and then I had a preschooler. So we've been homeschooling all of those years, and my daughter graduated, I guess it's been 3 years now? Yes. Oh my goodness, it's been 3 years. And my oldest son graduated a year ago or 2 years ago. Yes, 2 years ago. Can you tell as they get to be teens and young adults, the time flies? We graduated him a year early. He did 3 years of high school. She did 4 years of high school, and my youngest is going to most likely do 4 years of high school. We just take a very individual approach to each child. So I am sitting here in my late 40s. 3 kids. We've been married 23 years, and it's been an amazing journey with the homeschooling. And I became very attached, we'll say, very bonded with my kids. And I do have other episodes about bonding and connecting with your kids in different age ranges, and I will drop those links in the show notes. So if this kind of piques your interest, you're like, yes, I want to hear more about the different age ranges, you can go ahead and go on to that. So now you kind of know a little bit of where I'm coming from. And like I mentioned earlier, I'm going to share with you from my mistakes. I'm not going to admit all of my mistakes, but each one of these has some type of foundation, some type of basis in a mistake that I made or something that I had to learn as I went along. So I'm hoping that this will kind of equip you maybe a little bit more than I did. Maybe all that preparation I did with all that reading and everything. Maybe I kind of headed some things off at the pass, but okay, so let's get into it. How to build the best bond with your graduated homeschool child and the motherhood in the young adult years. And I have 6 main points to make here. Now, know that when I say the graduated child, you might graduate a child that is still maybe on the younger age range or just maturity wise. And so you kind of have to gauge as to how you approach this. So I feel like, the young adults, you could still say teens. Now, my 19-year-old, yes, he's a teen, but I consider him a young adult because he is living and acting and his maturity is that of a young adult, not necessarily a teen. And I noticed that a bit with my daughter just a little bit later, by 19 or so, but he was pretty much by like 17 wanting to be treated like that. And we kind of, walk that line kind of going back and forth. But definitely at this point now, the 21 and 19-year-old, I would fully consider as young adults. All right, number 1 here. This is something I had to learn and I still actively have to repeat to myself. And that is to listen more than you talk. Listen to them. If you give them the space to talk, they will talk. Now, not everybody is going to be a natural wanting to talk or needing to verbally process what's going on or talk through things, but just giving them space. It doesn't mean you have to be sitting there staring at them and waiting for them to talk about something. You could just be doing something together. Oftentimes, driving someplace is a really good time for kids to open up and talk. I found that to be a really great place, especially for my boys, because they didn't want to look eye to eye at you. And my daughter was a little bit more okay with that. And we would be driving to run errands. Like, hey, you want to run an errand with me? And if they didn't bring something up that I knew we needed to talk about, I would just slightly bring it up and just let them take it to the extent that they wanted to take it. And that also definitely applies to young adults. Listen more than you talk. However, when they do share things with you, just listen. We'll get to a point in just a couple of points here of when to kind of speak, but remember what they tell you and then follow up with that. Because it could be something that just is maybe little and minor, but follow up with them and ask them about that. Not just the big things. Maybe they are taking college courses at the local community college and they're telling you about a paper they have to write. Well, yeah, you want to follow up with that. But maybe they also happen to mention just a little bit of tension in a friendship that they have. Well, follow up with them a couple days later and ask them, hey, how is that going? How are you working through with that? When we follow up with something that they told us, they know that we actually listened to them. We didn't just hear that they were saying words, we listened. We have then processed it, we have taken it in, and it's important to us. And so therefore, follow up with it. Which leads into my second tip that I want to give you, and that is that you shouldn't discredit their concerns. Just like when they were little and they would have to come and tell you about something that they saw. Maybe it was something about a frog that they saw, or they want to show you this rock that they found, or they want to tell you about something that's on their mind, or their dream, or something that they read about, or who knows, whatever ideas that they have. When they are little, we usually learn that we should listen to them because those things that we think are really small are actually really big in their world. And if we listen to them when they talk about the little things, when they're young, they're going to talk to us about the little and big things when they are older. And sometimes, just like with that little one who comes to you and shows you a rock and wants to tell you an entire story about this rock that they found because it is now their pet rock, and you listen to them, when it gets to them being older, there might still be something that is similar to them showing you a pet rock. Maybe it's just not really that big of a deal. You know that in the grand scheme of things, it's not that really big of a deal. But they're telling you about an adventure they had with their friend, and maybe this friend didn't like that friend took the last popsicle or something. I don't know. I'm making up stories here. But don't discredit the little things that they have concerns about because it still is a big thing to them. Go back to that first tip I mentioned and just listen more than you talk and then follow up with those concerns as well. So tip number 1 and tip number 2 are a bit intertwined. So don't discredit their concerns. Listen to them and understand that it might sound like a silly thing to you, but it's not silly to them. Number 3 is to give them space. I love my kids so much, just like you love your kids so much. And I can tend to maybe want to smother them. I could be very, I guess I could lean towards, so my daughter doesn't live at home. I could lean towards running out and visiting her all the time. Do you know what keeps me from doing that? My husband. He tells me, no, you need to stay here. She's okay. She's fine. And I know that. And it took me a while to be like, okay, I don't need to run out and see her all the time. It would be a day trip, but it wouldn't be that big of a day trip. It's not that big of a deal. I could go and do it, but to give them space. And same with my son. My older son, my 19-year-old, is living at home, and I have to remember to give him space. Sometimes he doesn't want to talk about things. When he doesn't want to talk about things, then I just have to give him that type of space. So you know your child, you know their circumstance, you know when to give space, and then you know sometimes when it is appropriate for you to go in and have conversations and to say, look, I have some concerns about things. But overall, give them space. They are wanting to become them. They are trying themselves out in the world. And if you've been homeschooling, you know that they already know a bit about how to navigate themselves in the world, and you have prepared them for that. And so trust what you have done. Trust the preparation that you have done. They have to try things. They have to have experiences. And sometimes they just need a little bit of space. Yes, if they are living at home, they should still have some things that they are required to do to help the family out, because they are still taking from the family in some ways, whether they're eating your food or they're making a mess or they're doing laundry there. There are still ways that they should be contributing to the family, even if they are taking college courses online full-time or part-time and working part-time or working full-time or whatever it is that they're doing. But give them some space. Remember yourself at their age, and remember how you wanted a little bit of space. Maybe you didn't want a lot of space. Some of us I wanted a lot of space from my family. That was just my personality, and it was foolish of me. But I wanted a lot of space, and some kids just want a little bit of space. So respect that. See where you can give them some more margin and where you can give them space in their lives. Number 4 is to ask if you can give advice before giving it. When we go straight into the advice, guess what happens? They tend to shut off. Their ears close up, even though you don't see it close up. Their eyes might start to glaze over. Their head might just kind of nod. But they are not receptive to what you have to offer. I know that you have some great advice and some wonderful wisdom that you have learned and you want to impart on them. We distinguish. There are times where you should not ask before giving advice. There are things that you need to give advice for or to help them with immediately, because it is maybe a major decision that would be life-altering, or it is something that is dangerous to them physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. But you need to determine that level. If it's a high-level risk, then you just need to tell them straight off and let them know. I mean, you can ask real quick, can I give you advice? Because I'm going to give it to you right now anyway. This is a really big concern that we need to have. But I'm talking about smaller things. Ask before you give advice. And they might say no. And guess what, Mom? That's okay. Just say, okay, well, if you change your mind, just let me know. And you can just simply walk away, smile, walk away. Don't walk away with your head hung low and starting to cry or anything. Don't take it personally. They said no, thank you, hopefully in a nice way. And that's okay. They know that you are there and you have offered to give them advice. And if they want to hear it, they will come and ask you. Number 6 is going to tie into this, I promise. But let's jump to number 5. Oh, no, it's not. Sorry. Number 5 is going to tie into this. Look, I lined this up really well. Number 5 is to be okay with them making mistakes. It's how they learn. It's how young children learn, right? That's how they know when they're learning how to walk and how to move their body and to jump and to climb trees, is that they have to try it out. And the same thing is with young adults. We just tend to get more fearful about it because these mistakes can affect a lot more. And again, if this is like a life or death situation, then you need to jump right in and you need to let them know what the consequences are of their actions or what they are about to do or what they have done. but it is okay for them to make mistakes. My 19-year-old runs his own business, and there are many times where I'm like, that is a mistake. And I will say, would you like some advice about this? And he says no. I'm like, okay, well, I do have some advice and wisdom. If you want to hear it, let me know. And sometimes he says, yeah, okay. And I tell him, and he still does not take my advice, does not heed my warning. And guess what? He goes and does that, makes a mistake. And you know what? He'll never do that again. He's learned from his mistakes. And maybe even if he does do it again, it might take 2 or 3 times of doing the same thing, making the same mistakes for them to learn. So it's okay for them to make mistakes. Again, these are not life or death types of mistakes. This isn't them driving a car that would not be safe to drive or letting them make mistakes as far as driving recklessly or anything like that. But maybe they are wanting to explore a certain career path. Well, let them go ahead and explore it. You might say that is definitely a mistake. That is not something that they should go into. That is even remotely something that they should consider. Let them try it out. And then that is how they're going to learn. Number 6, before we close this out here, this is all on a positive note. I feel like a lot, like all 5 of those were like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, just a little bit hitting it hard. But this one is a positive one. And that is to do things with them. What are their hobbies? Do they like to play golf? Do they like to play card games? Do they like to read books? Do they like to garden? Do they like to play certain sports? What are their hobbies? See how you can join in with their hobbies. Another thing to do is to go on a trip. Maybe it's just an overnight trip, or maybe you have a trip planned, something that you have to do, possibly. Maybe you have a part-time job and you're going to go and do some type of, you have to go on a business trip or whatever, and you take them along. Maybe they don't come to your business meetings or anything like that, but they get to hang out in the hotel and see you otherwise. But it doesn't even have to be anything like that. It could just be you go away for a weekend. It could just be an overnight, but go on a trip somewhere with them. There is no better way. Well, there's lots of different ways to bond, but going on a trip together really helps you to bond. Also, share your life with them. You have now kind of flipped things that they have graduated homeschool, and there is a process of them detaching themselves some, you giving them some space. And do you know what happens? You guys get to become friends. It doesn't mean that you didn't have a friendship before that, but it was different. It'll start to make a different type of turn, and the friendship will be different. Yes, you will always be their mother. You will always have a deeper concern for them than anybody else in the world. You will still lean towards mothering them. So there's this friendship, motherhood tension kind of right there, but you guys get to become friends. So share your life with them. Maybe there's hobbies. Maybe there's things that you have picked up that you enjoy doing, and you can share it with them. You can maybe have them take part in it. You can have them join in on things. So I have a monthly Crunchy Women's group that meets. We call ourselves the Crunchy Women of Faith. And every month we meet at my house. There's a different topic. And I tell my daughter about this. And I tell her, if you move back home or if you move back closer or something, you definitely can come. And I've told the other moms, if you have some young adult daughters that want to come, please bring them, because it is something that you as the mom enjoy doing, and share that with them. So I would do that. If or when she moves home or lives closer, then I would definitely do that. But you guys get to become friends. We recently took a trip, just a couple hours in the car, and when my kids were little, we would have a separate bag full of all kinds of things to do in the car. Maybe they had their own bags of different things and toys or games, things that I would keep separate that they wouldn't get to play with unless we were on a road trip. We would incorporate a movie for them to watch. And I would have, as they've gotten older, they would pack their own bags. And I would have my own bag of stuff that I would get done during those couple of hours while my husband, who enjoys driving, because apparently I don't drive fast enough. That's okay. I get some things done. I hold off on some things. I get some orders placed. I get some reading done. I get some podcast work done, all that kind of fun stuff. But we were on a trip recently, and I didn't even open up my bag for possibly the first 2 hours. We just talked. And it was so much fun to be able to just kind of maybe look out the window and then talk about what we're seeing and talk about things in life. And I was just like, wow. I looked over at my husband and I said, and I'm going to try not to get choked up here, I said, look at the friends that we have created, that we have taken the time, that we poured into the relationships with them. And we've created some really cool kids that I really enjoy. And this is the time when they have graduated homeschool and you begin to make that shift that you get to really enjoy them, see the fruit of all of the time that you put in. So I know that you probably have young children. Just know that there is fruit right there. I promise you, as you are right now this day. But there is more and more fruit. There is a bountiful harvest coming when just day in and day out, you just put one foot in front of the other and you do the right things that you know that you need to do that's going to honor God and that's going to lead your kids in the right way. And that is the fruit that you get to have. As I mentioned earlier, if you are interested in the mentorship program where you and I can work together one-on-one in whatever capacity whatever area that you have concerns with, I would love to be able to come alongside you. And you can find that information at littlebylittlehomeschool.com/mentorship. Friend, this has been hopefully a blessing to you. It's been a blessing to me to share it with you. I never thought that I would find myself in this part of homeschooling with graduates, but it's amazing. It's wonderful. And I just pray that this has blessed you and that you will begin to see the fruit in your lives and know that that bountiful harvest is coming. And I hope that this has just kind of given you a little peek into what's coming ahead. And I will see you back here in the podcast really soon.
Thank you for listening, friend. I'd love to connect with you more. You can find social media links in the show notes and share this episode with a friend who could use a boost to her homeschool. See you back here real soon.